Hello, everyone. Today we are going to present our study entitled Assessing the Effect of Economic, Social, and Environmental Factors on Reverse Logistics in Manufacturing Firms as mediated by Sustainable Supply Chain Initiatives. We are going to talk about the variables, the operational framework, the methodology, results, discussions, and recommendation.
In recent years, reverse logistics has received increasing attention due to the heightened environmental concerns and the lack of disposal capacities of organizations in the Philippines. Reverse logistics refers to the returned goods that undergo the recycling and remanufacturing process. Once done, they can be reused as raw materials. With environmental sustainability becoming a significant concern, companies are experiencing pressures to adopt sustainable practices like reverse logistics, as it has been linked to economic, environmental, and social benefits like decreasing raw material usage, reducing disposal costs, and improving corporate image. Sustainable supply chain initiatives such as green purchasing, green manufacturing, and green packaging have the potential to aid firms in their implementation. These practices help the promotion of reusable materials in the supply chain, the reacquisition of materials, and the ability to recover value from these materials. The close relation of their benefits means that the initiatives have a potential mediating effect on reverse logistics implementation. That said, our study aims to directly test the influence of sustainable supply chain initiatives on reverse logistics and close the research gap in developing countries. This leads us to our three research problems as shown on the screen. Next slide, please. The operational framework of the study lists the measures of the variables. The dependent variable is reverse logistics, the factors are the independent variables, and the sustainable supply chain initiatives serve as the mediating variables. Our research focuses on testing the mediating role of the initiatives on the economic, environmental, and social factors in influencing the implementation of reverse logistics. We use the reverse logistics activities, gatekeeping, collection, inspection, and disposition to measure the dependent variable. The mediating variables were measured based on green purchasing, green manufacturing, and green packaging. Next slide, please. The research possesses the characteristics of a quantitative study with a combination of descriptive and causal explanatory research designs. The study was conducted in the Philippine Economic Zone Authority, located in Laguna Technopark, because it's home to some of the world's leading manufacturing investors. Online survey questionnaires were distributed via email. We used the sample size recommendation in the PLS-SEM study of Cohen 1992 with small population corrections as recommended by Hoyle to adjust the sample size recommendations and account for the actual number of companies that can be sampled. With a 5% significance level and a minimum R squared of 0.1, the table by Hare et al. 2013 with small population corrections by Hoyle required 70 respondents to conduct structural equations modeling in the data analysis. And from a list of 130 manufacturing companies, we were able to obtain 71 valid responses coming from one supervisor, manager, corporate officer, or business executive per firm, satisfying the aforementioned requirement. To analyze the data, we used partial least squared structural equation modeling, or PLS-SEM. We found that this would be most appropriate for estimating the multiple and interrelated dependence of the constructs included in our study. A path analysis was also conducted to visualize how the latent variables are related to each other. A mediation analysis procedure was also conducted to determine whether there was full, partial, or no mediation. Next slide, please.
We surveyed individuals who are all in positions to have knowledge of and decision-making capabilities over the company's logistics activities, with a significant portion actively working in the manufacturing industry for over 21 years. The principal products of the companies showed significant variation, with no specific type making up a majority of the respondents. The results showed that most firms in Laguna Technopark have a strong disposition policy while inspecting and sorting the products returned by customers. Waste generation was also a major consideration for the respondents. Most firms also believe that environmental policies and regulations are a major factor in implementing reverse logistics. The firms generally wish to enhance their green image, avoiding hazardous materials in their component, purchasing, production, and packaging. Smart PLS was used to conduct partial least square structural equation modeling and processing the data. Shown here are the Cronbach alpha values, which is a traditional test of internal consistency used to assess reliability. We found that an alpha above 0.6 is acceptable, while an alpha of 0.8 is very good. All the alpha values are within a good range, with the lowest reliability measure being found in green manufacturing with an alpha of 0.769, while the highest is economic factors with an alpha of 0.941. Meanwhile, composite reliability measures internal consistency by showing how interrelated the items within a latent variable. Values between 0.7 and 0.9 are seen as satisfactory, while values greater than 0.9 are undesirable and are less likely to be a valid measure of the construct. However, we were able to prove that our composite reliability values are acceptable by using the bootstrap method with a significance level of 5% to obtain the confidence intervals. Thus, having composite reliability values ranging from 0.854 to 0.955 shows that the construct indicators are highly correlated with one another. Next slide, please. The R-square method was the only usable criterion for model fit due to the non-parametric nature of PLS-SEM. Despite the R-square values being in the lower range, Hare et al. 2018 mentioned that R-square values as low as 0.1 are still acceptable even though it is not desirable. With the lowest R-square value being 0.251, there is no evidence of any divergence from a good model fit. From the calculated t-statistics and p-values, which are both measures of significance, 3 significant direct relationships and 1 significant mediating relationship were identified. These are the relationships between green packaging and reverse logistics, social factors and green packaging, social factors and green manufacturing, and social factors and green purchasing. The remaining observations were either too similar to the null hypothesis or too random to be evidence of a significant relationship. Next slide, please. To conclude, contrary to previous studies, green purchasing and green manufacturing present insignificant indirect effects on the relationship with reverse logistics, as well as with economic, environmental, and social factors. Meanwhile, green packaging was found to have full mediation on the relationship between social factors and reverse logistics, as there was no direct relationship to partially attribute any variations to reverse logistics. With respect to the effects of the factors on the sustainable supply chain initiatives, economic and environmental factors do not have a significant positive effect on green purchasing, green manufacturing, and green packaging. In contrast, social factors were found to have a substantial beneficial impact on all sustainable supply chain initiatives. This indicates that manufacturing firms in Laguna Technopark place high importance on meeting community expectations and developing their green image as a strategic aim and a means to boost their industry competitiveness. In this study, green purchasing and green manufacturing were determined to have no significant relationship with reverse logistics, whereas green packaging has a significant positive effect on reverse logistics in Laguna Technopark's manufacturing firms. That said, we would like to suggest the following recommendations. Managers of manufacturing firms should consider integrating reverse logistics in their company's operations to increase global competitiveness and to aid in reducing environmental concerns. It is also recommended that they consider more collaboration with their suppliers to achieve the desired results of adopting reverse logistics. Future researchers are recommended to investigate the different indicators of green purchasing and green packaging to ensure their distinction. Educational institutions can use the findings to support and strengthen the current studies. Local and national governments are recommended to educate and encourage individuals and businesses alike about the importance of sustainable practices through holding activities, investing in green technologies, and enacting and upholding regulations. All other stakeholders are recommended to examine their organizations and establish strategies to leverage the knowledge based on the findings of this study. With this, they can better decide the best way to deploy reverse logistics in their organizations, as well as have the knowledge to influence its adoption in other organizations. And this concludes our presentation. We are James Candelario, Francis Go, Hali Hong, and Danica Lee, and Janelle Gia. And thank you for listening.